Hello, and welcome to day one of Project Management Tools. I'm Brian Wood, founder and owner of Engineering Mastery Academy. Today, we're going to be going over some tools to support the strategies that I've talked about previously. Today's session is going to be going over four categories of tools, essentially, four categories of planners. I'm not going to be going into details of different kind of planning software, different online options. I'm going to just be focusing on the planners that most of us are familiar with, that most people have heard of before or know, maybe even use. Hopefully use some of them to some degree. Okay, let me get started by fixing my screen. Bear with me for a moment. I want to bring up, actually, let me go ahead and bring this back up. The first option I want to go over is the paper planner. Now, if I can do this right, let me see if I can switch this over. Yes, here I am. So with the paper planner, this is what I use. I use this every day. There are many different options for the layout of a planner. This is what works really good for me. You can look through different planners that are available and see what works best for you. But what I looked for when I was choosing my planner is I wanted hourly. I want to see, basically we have the days of the week, right? 1 week per 2 pages, and then hourly blocks so I can write in what I'm doing. Probably shouldn't show that too long. I'm not sure exactly what's on here, but and then a section at the bottom for notes. So I use that for my paper planning. But the paper planner, there's good and bad. Number one, with the paper planner, I've always got it right here. If I need a little reminder of where I'm at, I can just look down at the paper. I don't have to open up a different app. I don't have to switch to a different app or look on my phone or anything. I just glance down. Oh yeah, that's where I'm at. It's completely accessible. It's always here for me. Again, like anything on the computer, pretty much, if you're going to look at your plan, you have to switch off from what you're doing to look at the plan. It's tremendously beneficial to have this paper right in front of you. The downsides, you do have to actually, if you're looking up at your screens, you do have to actually look down at the planner. To me, that's a minor downside, but if you're looking at productivity, because we've been talking about productivity all this time, it does take away from productivity if you're pausing to look down at a plan. Let me switch this back over. Maybe I'll go, yeah, let's go for this one. Other cons. If you're in a work environment where you have lots of colleagues around you, you're going to have a tendency to close your planner. You're going to feel like a weirdo having a planner when nobody else has a planner, and you're going to find yourself closing that planner. Now, all planners come with little tags, right? So you can open it back up your pages. But if you're closing your planner, it really kind of defeats the purpose of the visibility and the ease of use. Also, if you find that the format you've chosen doesn't work for you, you pretty much have to buy a new planner. You can't go through, sometimes you might be able to draw lines and things like that on the planner, but for the most part, you've decided, well, I didn't really want hourly blocks. What I really need is a calendar planner, which this little thing has somewhere in here. Right? You might decide you want a planner that's more like this. Right? You just need little tiny reminders. Or you want something monthly. And then here's what I was looking for. Or some people just use something like this. They want larger squares than this thing has, so they can just write on each day what they have in their plan. I like to be much more detailed in terms of what time I'm going to be doing what task, and so I like the hourly planning. Again, whatever works for you. I'm not saying what's right or what's wrong. Next option. This is the option that most engineers in America, at least, are probably used to, and that's Outlook. There are different apps What I have to say about Outlook also applies to most other apps. I have not reviewed every planning app out there. Spending my life looking at planning apps does not get much done. So I'm just going to go over Outlook, and you can think about how these things may or may not apply to the planning apps that you use. I don't have Outlook on this computer for various reasons, so I can't really share that. Let's do this. One thing you do get with Outlook is you can do automated reminders. So it's kind of tough to set up an automated reminder with a piece of paper. So for me, the biggest thing for Outlook is I can have pop-ups on the screen that will remind me of having a meeting coming up, or I'm supposed to be switching over to spend time on a different task. So I actually use that quite a bit. There's some flexibility in the viewing options. I'm not gonna, like I said, I don't have that on my computer, so I can't go into the details of that. But whatever app you're using, you probably have flexibility of looking at a monthly, hourly, daily, weekly plans like that. And then you can integrate your project with the other daily tasks that you have, the meetings you have coming up. So all that's great. What I've found is the real problem. The real problem is it's great for the meetings because people send you meeting invites, they add to your calendar. It's great for some specific things that are coming up that you can schedule ahead of time, that you have a meeting here or there. But if you're actually working on a project and you have multiple things going on in that project, or let's say you're using this project planning as a way to plan your days. If you have multiple things coming up, things shifting around, Outlook is not, you can shift things around a little bit, but if you have something reoccurring, it's very hard to shift things around. If you have things that you want to, if you have your entire schedule is filled because you have all these hourly things, you can populate it but when each day is different, you might spend an hour every morning just populating your calendar. And then you've lost an hour of actually getting things done. The difficulty in populating and maintaining the calendar when there's many tasks involved is the reason people don't usually use it for this. There is a project planning feature that used to be built into Outlook. I haven't looked at that for a long time. It might still be there. And you might be able to use that. I'm going to go into Gantt charts later in a different training. And Outlook used to have sort of a mini Gantt chart feature in it. I don't know if it still has that. But I have found for myself that even using the task lists in Outlook doesn't work good for me. What really works good for me is a system that includes some things on Outlook, some things on paper. I'll go into that at the end of this training. Another good thing, if you have an old version of Outlook, which probably wouldn't have run on most of today's computers, it was really good because it would pop up the reminders on top of everything else. So if you have a meeting, it would ding, it would come up and say, hey, you've got a meeting right now, and it pop up in your face in front of the app you're working on. They got rid of that a few years ago. I don't know why. I used to have a custom code I would run in order to get the things to pop up in front of everything again. And my company, I switched companies, and the company I work for now has security policies that won't let my custom code run. Therefore, again, I've got pop-ups coming up, meeting reminders, but all I see is a little color change in the bar at the bottom, which I don't notice usually if I'm really busy working on things. So the reminder feature for me is not timely. It's useful, maybe an hour later I'll notice, but if it's something timely like a meeting, the reminders just don't do me much good. The one good thing is, though, if it's an online meeting, that reminder will give you a link to that meeting. So that's something that's nice. Next, custom spreadsheets. I've developed several different custom spreadsheets. Those of you who have been with me for a while might remember my frog calendar, as I called it. If you eat a frog every morning, the rest of the day is downhill, basically. So I called it a frog calendar to put my biggest things I don't really want to do that I have to do, I put in that calendar. I've gone away from that. it is useful. Some people got it from me, and I hope you really found it useful if you got that from me. But I found that it's not nearly as useful as a different custom spreadsheet that I created. I've combined the best parts of that calendar with a task list, which I'll be going over my action item list later. But I've made a combined tool which pretty much gives me what's really important, which is when are things due and how much time do I have? Am I overscheduled or not? So again, that's for a different training. But the custom spreadsheets, obviously you have complete flexibility in design. You're going to be creating this thing, or you get it from me. You can still get in there and change it however you want to change it. So you can get exactly the columns you want. Do you want to know the details of the action? Do you want to break down separate actions? Do you want to have a status area where you say where you're at, who you're waiting for, etc.? So, you know, that flexibility is just tremendous. When plans change, it's usually as easy as changing a date in a cell, or just moving things around. Since you've created that spreadsheet or you're using that spreadsheet, you can very quickly move things around. You're not limited to the limitations of the interface of whatever app you're using. Downside, no automated reminders. So you're going to have to figure out how you want to do your reminders, because Excel's not going to give it to you. Option 5. This is the productivity or planning method that most engineers I've known use. Post-it notes. I use them myself for years. I'm not putting you down if you use Post-it notes. We all start somewhere, and that's where I started. But what I found also is that I ended up with so many Post-it notes on my monitors, because I use 2 monitors, that they became meaningless to me. I couldn't get to them. They'd be postponed. In the beginning, it was great. I get 3 or 4 up there, make sure I get them done by the end of the week. As more things got piled on me, I just start putting more Post-it notes on there. And it doesn't matter what they say if you're not looking at them. So they're easy to write, they're easy to update, but if you're not looking at it, what's the use of it really? Oops, okay, I didn't lose anything. Sorry, trying to work here on 2 monitors, like I said. The next option, which a lot of us also use, is phone reminders. Now, if you have Outlook on your phone, which I might end up doing, if you have Outlook on your phone, then you can integrate Outlook features and reminders with your phone, and you can probably, I haven't used it so I don't know, but you can most likely, you most likely use your phone features for reminders, so you'll get notification pop-ups, maybe you get some sound and things like that remind you of important things. What I do is I actually just manually schedule in on my alarm. I set alarms throughout the day. 10 minutes before my meeting, I say, meeting in 10 minutes. That's my alarm, and I have it set to go off, repeat weekly. So I do that for my meetings. Certain things that I want to remind myself to do each week, I go ahead and just set weekly alarm that repeats weekly. I have a few things scheduled in my Google Calendar because I use Android. I don't really use the calendar that much though. It's usually as simple as just putting things into my alarms, just setting alarms to remind me. Also, if you're setting up alarms, it's much easier. You don't have to do it quite as much as you have to do it in order to update the calendar. Next would be, I'm sorry, getting back to Post-its. There's a feature in Outlook. In Windows. There's a feature in Windows. I don't know. Apple probably has something similar. I don't use Apple, so I don't know. There's a feature called, what's the current name of it? Let me look over here. They call it Sticky Notes. So if you do a search for Sticky Notes, you'll find that app built into Windows. And what that is basically Post-it notes. You can post them all over your screen. And I've used it in different ways. I'll go over a little bit today how I currently use that. But that is, for me, is a much better option than the paper Post-it notes. It has the same problem, though, that if you get too many of them up there, you start not paying attention to them. So the last option is the option that I do, and I've already alluded to it. The last option is to do a combination of different tools. So I've got my paper planner, which I showed you a moment ago. Let me bring up my action item list. I'm not going to, I'm going to save the main training on this tool for another session. But basically, my time constraints tab down here, this is my planning tab. Here on my action item list, I have my actions, and then I have a due date and a start by date, and then how long the action is going to take. And what that does for me is once I've populated that, it fills in over here the time that I've used by percentage on those tasks. Let's go briefly. Over here I have a table that shows all my daily or weekly tasks, and some things broken, monthly things that I break down to take weekly time, so I know how much time I have available. So I have my daily tasks over here, how many hours are due that week, how many hours are due to date, the availability that I've used on the other tab, and then most importantly, how much I have scheduled out. If you, well, I'm going to go to it, but basically this is what I use for scheduling. This is my main scheduling tool right now, and I will put projects into the action items list and break them down for things, what things are due, when they're due. So it'll show, this will not, just to be clear, this is not a scheduler, but this will let me know if I'm overscheduled. This will let me know by my time, how much time I've used, do I have enough time to get everything done that I have scheduled. So although it's not scheduler per se, and I'll go into more details on this tool later, it's a very important part of the scheduling. So what do I actually do? Let's get this recentered. So what do I actually do in my planning? So what I typically do, not typically, what I do, every quarter, I set my quarterly goals. From those quarterly goals, I break down what are the monthly or weekly actions, or what daily habits do I need to have in order to reach those goals. I'll then go into that action item planner that I showed you, and I'll put them in there. I'll say, okay, these are the things I need to do. These are the things I need to get, what the date they need to get done. And if you, in case you didn't notice, the way I have it scheduled is if I need to, the way I have it laid out, if I have a new task that is due this week, excuse me, I don't have to fit it in order with everything else. I can just put it on the bottom, and it has the dates right there. And I can actually use that to look at, I can filter out and say, okay, what's due this week? And that gives me a list of what's due this week. So although it's not technically a planning tool, it does sort of a first level planning of these are the things that need to get done. Then I'll take those and I'll put them into my paper planner. I'll say, okay, this is what I need to do this day, this is what I need to do that day. And I will look at my Outlook schedule to see where do I have my meetings. Do I have any special meetings coming up that are going to take my time away? And I'll use that planner also to see, okay, how many hours a day do I actually have that I can apply. So I'll take my most important things I need to get done for the day, schedule them in, let's say I've got 4 out of 8 days are already planned for my daily activities or something else going on that week. Then I will, as much as possible, well, not as much as possible, I will go to my Outlook calendar, see what, if the things are scheduled at specific times already that are beyond my control, somebody else's meeting, for example, then I will fit my, I'll draw that in here, block out that time, and then fit my activities around that time. Then what I'll do is, for meetings, I do this, and for some things that I just really need to, I know that I don't want to do it, I'm not going to get to it unless I force myself to do it. That's when I go into my phone and I will schedule alarms to remind me, okay, on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, I've got to work on this, for example. And I don't use the alarms a lot in my phone, just for very key things that I know that if I don't set an alarm, I won't get to it. In the beginning, you might want to do what I did in the past, which is set lots of alarms. But like anything else, don't overwhelm yourself with too much. Don't put too many alarms in there, because when you get overwhelmed, you start ignoring it. So set alarms for key things to remind you. Use your paper planner to schedule things. Use your Outlook and your spreadsheet to actually find, to organize the things that need to get done and understand the scope. And by combining all those together, it creates a system for planning. And I'll actually walk you through step by step on this system in a different training once I've shown you the other tools I use in the system. It'd be kind of awkward for me to show you the entire system now when you aren't familiar with the other tools yet. So with that, I'm going to be signing off in a moment. Okay, I forgot to show this to my timeline, so there's nobody actually on here with me at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and end this for today. I'll see you next week. And next week I will be talking about Gantt charts. Beginner level training on Gantt charts. Until then, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.